How's it going, everyone? It's Paul, your host of the Last Call Fantasy Football Podcast here on February 23rd, 2026. And I am writing solo once again today. My other co hosts are once again indisposed, whether it's work travel or being under the weather, but wanted to get into this conversation about free agents, specifically the running back position, which I think is the most interesting fantasy relevant position going into this offseason when it comes to free agency. When you look at it from the lens of a weak running back draft class and just the volume of talent that's going to be available for teams to take a look at, I think it's worth the discussion. So we'll do some news, we'll do some free agent talk when it comes to the running backs. And with all that said, I want to say cheers. Last call. Okay, so the first piece of news that we have to get into is, of course, Javonte Williams being the first running back piece taken off the board here. That's going to be Dallas offering him and giving him a 3-year deal to come back and be their starting running back. It's worth $16 million over the 3 years. So, as these deals tend to work, it's 3 years in name, but it could be a 2-year deal, which is a good hedge by Dallas, I suppose, when it comes to just making sure that they're not hitching themselves to a wagon of a extremely injured running back. At least he was the last 2 seasons before last. He was very, very effective last year, especially early on. And I don't know if it was offensive line issues or him starting to wear down by the end of the season, whether he was becoming less effective, but he had a great start to the 2025 season. And I think I would I would be shocked if they didn't add somebody to the backfield in the draft or in the offseason, just an extra piece to help augment that, because I think Javonte Williams, for all the recovery that he's done from that gruesome knee injury, certainly seems like he still, has the possibility of running out of juice towards the end of a long football season, which, I mean, I can't blame him or anybody else for that. It's a lot of football to play over the course of 18 weeks. Next piece of news, we've got Mike Evans. Um, Nothing huge to report just yet. I think he will be one of the first dominoes to fall in the wide receiver market, because the news right now is that he plans to explore free agency. From the Tampa Bay perspective, um, he's certainly had a historic run of multiple 1,000-yard seasons. Probably broke that record if I'm not mistaken. But certainly the decline is there. And with the stable of wide receivers that they have, you have to imagine that they feel pretty confident with what they have and not having to offer an extension to a 32-year-old wide receiver who's kind of based on size and speed. So I would be curious. I mean, I'm not one to speculate on a lot of these landing places for players. I like to wait and see and then comment on those fits. So I think, San Francisco has been speculated. Couple other places, but like I said, I don't want to speculate too much. I want to see where these dominoes start to fall before I have to give my analysis on a fit or not. Travis Kelsey, it sounds like conversations are leading towards him being a return to play player candidate. So uh, it sounds like he's happy with the progress that Patrick Mahomes is making with his ACL recovery. He sounds like he wants to come back for one more go, um, which I guess I for fantasy purposes, I don't know how much that matters. Like, we saw the decline last year. He still finished as a top 10 tight end, and I don't know how much that matters. If you're not if you're not the Trey McBrides or the Brock Bowers or the league winning tight end, then being a top 10 tight end doesn't really mean a lot these days. Um, so, I mean, if you need a late round tight end and you want someone to kind of backfill the end of your bench and you can put him in on a good matchup, then I think that's probably where he lands as a fantasy prospect. But I will not be drafting much Travis Kelsey going into this 2026 season. Um, the last piece, of course, I'm sure many of you have already heard that Rondell Moore tragically passed away over the last 2 days, and obviously it's another loss to the NFL community, and um, it's heartbreaking to hear when a 25-year-old kid is taken from us, and it's never easy for anyone that's close to them and know or has known them. So uh, I don't have a lot to say about it. It's obviously a very tragic happenstance. And he spent time with the Cardinals, spent time with the Falcons, spent time with Minnesota, I think, at the end of his career. And uh, it's a sad story that I don't have a lot to comment on it about, but wanted to bring it up as it is part of the news cycle right now around the NFL. And I'm sure his family and friends and teammates will miss him dearly. It's never something that's easy to talk about, and just wanted to mention it as a tip of the hat to him, who had his moment in football and in fantasy as well. So let's get into the meat of our episode. And like I said, I think this running back free agency class is going to be once again the talking point of the offseason, because when you think back, I think it was maybe only 2 years ago when you saw the Derrick Henrys make a move, the Saquon Barkleys make a move, and Aaron Jones moved, and like all these big fantasy football running back names made a move because the running back market was in such a flux. They were undervalued, but the teams that valued them and gave them the money. And I think it's going to be something similar. It's a weak running back draft class, and there's Jeremiah Love at the top, and then there's already dispute about who running back two is actually going to be. So these big names are going to, I think, carry extra value as we go through this free agency period, and what teams are willing to pay um, it seems like such a amorphous subject when it comes to paying running backs. Like, if you believe he is a superstar running back, then he gets top of market, which is still like not game breaking money. And if you don't think he is, then he's getting, you know, a Javonte Williams deal, which is effectively $5 million a year. So it's very exciting, not exciting. I think it'll be very interesting to see how the NFL processes this running back free agency class. Once again, on the coattails of a very underwhelming running back draft class. So the first player that we'll talk about is Kenneth Walker, and obviously Super Bowl MVP. When Zach Charbonnet went down, he emerged as a very obvious bell cow back. Uh, Stood out, made plays. Like, the run game kind of all came together towards the back half of that season, and he certainly profited from that. He finished during the regular season, however, as running back 22, which, I mean, for us in fantasy football circles, is usable. But if they expect to bring back a Zach Charbonnet, if they expect to bring in some extra competition, maybe that's what we have to expect. Also, that being said, Clint Kubiak has moved on to be the head coach of the Raiders. And I don't know what it means for Kenneth Walker. Like, the GM got up on a stage after the Super Bowl parade and made a joke about, hey, this guy's already trying to negotiate with me, and that didn't go over well. Like, I almost wonder, it makes so it, there's two parts to this. I think it makes too much sense for the Seahawks to I think it makes too much sense for the Seahawks not to bring him back. So that's part one. Zach Charbonnet is not going to be who he was last year, coming off an ACL, at least next year. Kenneth Walker was clearly the most valuable player in that playoff game against the Patriots. Like, agents and players know to push their point when it comes to these sort of moves. And I think Seattle, they are going to be in a bit of a bind because they have to pay some of these defenders that were on 1 year deals, or that they are players they want to keep around. They're going to have to give Sam Darnold a bit of a bump for winning the Super Bowl. Like, it just, what happens in this time of year. And I wonder, there's, I mean, my head says it makes too much sense to let this guy walk out the door. My heart says you can find another running back for less money if you really wanted to. And just for example, we'll get into our next player, which is, you know what? I'm going to jump ahead to Tyler Algier, and I think this has been proposed across other platforms as well. I'm very much aware, but like a Tyler Algier at $6 to $7 million a year versus Kenneth Walker at $15 to $16 million a year, I think is something that Seattle's going to probably look at. And Tyler Algier has performed in the past. He's performed in the present. He, in his rookie season, was the first 1,000-yard rusher in Atlanta Falcons history. He's worked with all sorts of running schemes and worked with the offensive line that's in Atlanta that's been very good, but he certainly brings that physicality that your Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker can bring, and he's been a more than capable runner as a fifth round pick, I think he was. So it seems very unlikely that he'll be re-signing with the Falcons. He's going to be a top of the list candidate for a number of teams. I truly believe that. I think the Broncos, the Seahawks, the mm, I mean, the Chiefs could use a guy like this. Like, he has juice for being a guy the size that he had, the size that he is. Like, I'm looking at it right now. He's 5'10", 225 pounds, um, 25 years old. So, like, still in the prime of his running back career with not that many reps on his tires. I will remind you, because Bijan has basically taken over the backfield the last 2 years, 2 or 3 years, I should say. Um, so I think he is destined for another location, and I think he is going to be it. He will thrive wherever he goes. I'm very confident of that. Um, as long as the situation in front of him is good, which you have to assume if you're paying a free agent running back, that you have to feel pretty good about your situation on offense in general, whether that's offensive line or scheme or otherwise. So, very excited to see where he lands. And with our Dynasty startup draft only a couple months away, I'm going to be keeping a close eye on everything that has to do with Tyler Algier for sure. Um, the next big player I think we have to talk about is Breece Hall. Now, there's been conflicting reports from anyone and everyone that cares. It sounds like he wants out of New York, and rightfully so, with the way that he's been used, the way he's been treated, and the way the team is in general. Can the Jets afford to pay a running back when they are so very obviously in need of everything else, and they're not set up to actually require the services of an elite running back? Um, yeah, it sounds like there was a market at the last year's trade deadline for the Chiefs. The Chiefs wanted to make a move to bring him in, but they weren't willing to give up a third round pick. So I've heard they could franchise him. I've heard they could sign and trade him. I've heard they could transition tag him. And this is something that's not new to me, but I learned the definition of over the last couple days is the transition tag, where they could slap him on a transition tag and offer him a slightly less amount than the franchise tag amount of money. And if someone in the league wants to match or exceed that amount, then they'd also have to give up maybe a pick or two when it comes to acquiring Brees Hall. So that's a possibility. I've also heard the Jets just want to extend him because at some point, as a franchise, you need good players in your building, regardless of what your situation is and whether you're building for next year or the year after. So, um, oh man, I feel I guess I feel for Brees Hall more than anything else. The poor guy has been stuck in a bad franchise in a bad situation his entire rookie contract, and now they might make him stick around. Um, if I'm the Jets, I guess I can see both sides. Like maybe you want to ship him out for some extra draft capital as you try to build up your franchise. At the same time, like he has been a good soldier and a integral part of your offense for his entire rookie contract, other than him being injured with his ACL. This past year, he certainly looked like he was back to his old ways in terms of being elusive and explosive as a runner and a pass catcher. He is an elite pass catcher too, out of the backfield, I will say. So, landing places, I would love to see him. Obviously the Chiefs made a move for him or tried to. You could look at places like Minnesota, where they like to use their running backs out of the backfield. Maybe replace Aaron Jones with a younger version. I mean, Brees Hall is only 24 years old right now. That would be a good fit, I think. He can run every route. He can work out of the zone scheme that they're working there. I think he would be a great fit in, heck, even Denver. Like, we're going to get into Denver at some point because uh, I'm an RJ Harvey owner in my keeper league, and I'm curious about what they're going to do with him. But I'm pretty sure he's not the answer. So I think a Brees Hall to carry the workload there would make a lot of sense. Lots of good. I mean, who doesn't need a versatile, big running back when it comes to their offense? And I get maybe the New York Jets see that as well and just realize, hey, we can't let this guy out of the building. So we will see about that. Other players, J.K. Dobbins signed a 1 year deal with the Broncos, performed admirably when he was available. Looking over the first 5 weeks before, actually, no, where did he get hurt? It looks like he got hurt maybe around week 11. Maybe week 10, he got hurt against Vegas and then didn't play basically the rest of the season. Um, he was putting up consistently 15 points a game out of the running back position, which is certainly valuable. I drafted him last year and then made the boneheaded trade for Ollie Gordon, chasing upside for the veteran value, but he uh, could certainly land back with the Broncos. He could land with any team that's looking to add that explosive element from the backfield as a runner. He can catch passes. It's not really his forte, but I think at the same time, you look at that and you say, he's come back from so many injuries. I'm not sure what he's going to fetch on the open market. I couldn't even tell you what the Broncos just paid him this past season to be their lead back. It's going to be less going into next season. Whoever ends up deciding to pick him up to just fill out a running back room. But I mean, the poor guy's not even 28 years old. I think he's what I just closed his tab, but he's got to be like 26, 27 years old, and just the injuries have piled up to a point where it's uh, it's going to be tough to trust him as a fantasy asset. It's going to be tough to trust as a NFL player as well when he's missing half seasons here and there and everywhere. So uh, we'll keep an eye on him as well. And based on landing spot, I think that will dictate where people should take him in their drafts, whether the landing spot and the situation works out well. And honestly, that could be said for all these running backs. Running back is one of those positions where it's very important that the scheme and the offensive line and the situation and the quarterback and everything, the best running backs are in the best offenses. That's not breaking any new ground. That's just a fact. So take that with you when you go into your drafts going into this offseason. And just remember that, like, Quinshaw Judkins off a broken leg in Cleveland with no offensive line actually signed as of this date is probably not going to be the top end asset that you want him to be and that he should be. Um, he is certainly worthy of being a top end running back asset. It's just going to be tough, and situation matters a lot when it comes to these running backs. The next player I want to talk about is Rico Dowdle. It certainly looks like he's going to be moving on from Carolina, and I feel for the guy. I think he was if he wasn't an undrafted free agent, he was certainly a late round pick that Dallas took a couple years ago. And I feel for the guy because, like, what does he have to do to get his money, get his contract? All he did in Dallas was put up over 1,200 scrimmage yards and all these touchdowns, and then last year goes over to Carolina and just shows out for the majority of the season. And it was a timeshare. It took a while. It took a Chuba Hubbard injury for him to start get going. But I mean, man, like those those week 5 and week 6 um, point totals. It wasn't just that either. Like you look at his week 9 where he put up 28, and you look at he put up 15 and 15 the weeks after. Like he I think he has all the makings of a workhorse running back. Um, it's just going to be a matter of landing place on who wants to take him. And the poor guy is probably going to end up with another bottom of the barrel contract, another 2.5, $3 million. And they're going to say, well, show us again. And that is the tragedy of being a running back in the NFL. Um, I think that he will be a undervalued piece in redraft, undervalued piece in startup drafts for dynasty. If if he lands on, I'm trying to think of a good place for the guy. If he goes to Green Bay, if he goes to, I mean, if he's a cheap option for the Lions to pick up rather than pay Montgomery, like that would be some crazy value. You look at the Bills. The Bills might want to upgrade their backup position behind James Cook if they're going to lean into the run game as much as they do. Like he is a candidate that a contending team could look at and say, "Hey, we don't have to go and break the bank to bring in a very productive and useful running back in a good situation that we have the offensive line and offense all set." So, trying to think of other places. The Rams, the Rams make some sense, but they tend to draft running backs like to develop from within. Um, I'm blanking here. What's it called? Miami. Miami could be a great situation to be that backup to Devon Achan, a little flash and thunder. I think that would be a good landing spot. Um, the offensive line down there has actually been slandered a bit too much for my liking. They've done a really good job of working with what they have, and those players have developed in a way that the run game has been very effective over the past couple of seasons. So, nothing bad to say about the Miami run game, at least. Um, okay, one last player here, and then we'll get out of here. We're looking at Travis Etienne. Now, he had his fifth year option picked up last year. He is officially now a free agent, and all the buzz is that he might be the one. He might be the running back that joins the Kansas City Chiefs. He's coming off a very strong season. If not a strong season, then at least a consistent season. And I'm looking at his weekly fantasy points put up over the entire course of the season. He finished as the running back 10. He played in every game. And more or less, I could say that he was certainly effective. Like probably averaging, just doing the math off the top of my head here, probably averaging around 15 to 14 points a game, which is very usable as a running back asset. He's 27, so not hitting that cliff just yet. And a quick note on, I guess, the running back cliff. And for the longest time, the dynasty guys and I guess fantasy people in general would always say that 27 is the cliff. That is where things fall off. That is where you need to sell high if you can, get out a year early if you can. And I think that has shifted. I think that we have moved past the 27-year-old threshold, and you see the players like Derrick Henry, you see the players like Christian McCaffrey. Those guys certainly fine, they're outliers. But look at the Aaron Jones, look at the Josh Jacobs, look at these guys that have been around the league for longer than you might expect, and they are still producing. So if Travis Etienne, who is a very capable receiving back, is able to make his way to a Kansas City where the situation is going to be good. Maybe not initially if Patrick Mahomes is late getting back to the team, but I think he would continue. It's funny to think about um, dynasty rankings because 2 seasons ago, I think people had Travis Etienne as a top 10 dynasty running back, and probably I wouldn't expect people to think of him that way anymore. But if he was to land in a Kansas City where, once again, Kansas City has been looking for this receiving back type for a long time, it could be a great situation where he can thrive. And if not, you know, grind out 5 yards of carry on the ground, he would be an asset in the pass game with a quarterback that's looking to get the ball out of his hands pretty quick, at least recently, based on his offensive schemes and game plans. And I mean, there's a couple other guys we can quickly touch on. There's the Kenneth Gainwells. He'll probably re-sign with the Steelers after what he did last season. Chase Brown is not a free agent, but it sounds like the Bengals might end up extending him um, ahead of schedule, which is curious to me only because they've already invested so much in the offense. I would think that they could invest more in the defense. Um, so we'll have to see how that storyline plays out. They just drafted Taj Brooks last year in a strong running back class, and I think he was a 6th round pick. I think he's a capable runner, especially another year into the NFL. They've got they could draft a running back this year. They could take one of these running backs that we just talked about. It would be shocking to me if Cincinnati decides to invest more on the offensive side of the ball when the defense is just so and glaringly bad. So we'll see. It's the week of the combine. I am excited to see what the 40 times of the receivers are. I think that's my biggest thing that I'm going to be watching. Uh, I think I've mentioned before, like I have my biases and my preferences in terms of how I stack those receivers. And I just wanted to mention before, it's too late to mention that while everyone had the Jordan Tyson, Makai Lemon, and Carnell Tate tier, I mentioned last week that I thought Denzel Boston, I put him above Makai Lemon in terms of my uh, observation and in terms of my evaluation. And then not a day later, I see Todd McShay putting him as like his number one receiver potentially. And then I just listened to um, Oh, what's his name? Okay. Well, the guys from Football 301 over on Yahoo, they were saying that they might have Denzel Boston as their number one or number two receiver as well. So I was trying to be conservative with my Denzel Boston takes, and these guys are out here saying he might be wide receiver one or two in the class. And especially, I just want to say again, this is based on landing place. If he lands with the Rams, the Bills, the Eagles, the Chiefs, like teams that have been desperate for an X receiver or teams that are looking to add an X receiver, I think his landing place alone will lend him to a better situation, which potentially could lead to more fantasy points. That's all I'll say about that. Okay. So I hope you all enjoy. And if you're enjoying the conversation, if you're enjoying the dialogue, if you want to leave a comment or ask a question, please do so below. Otherwise, like and subscribe. We're doing this as a hobby. We're here to chill and talk football, talk fantasy, and I'm hoping to have my co-hosts back on later this week, so it's not just me talking into the void and just revealing all my deep dark secrets about fantasy football for too long. At least just not by myself. So once again, if you made it this far, thank you. Enjoy, and we'll see you guys later this week. Take care and enjoy the combine. Bye.